What's up, audio geeks? Welcome back to the studio. We're back with the series that teaches you Pro Tools basics geared towards artists that are producing themselves at home. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the different track types in Pro Tools and what they're used for, when should you use them, and how to make the most of the tools that Pro Tools gives you. This might be a little boring if you're starting out, and I understand, but this acts as a complement to the other video that we've made on how to set up your Pro Tools mixer, which you can check out on the description below or in one of the cars that might be floating around. Without further ado, let's get to it. You might already know that Pro Tools, unlike many other DAWs, has many different track types. In fact, Pro Tools has 7 different track types, which is quite a lot once you consider that some DAWs only have 2 different track types. But what do all these track types do, and how can you actually use them to make whatever you need to make? So let's start by talking about the most common track type, which is the audio track. The audio track is essentially used to hold any audio signals that you have and to manipulate them somehow. You get a track that holds your audio, you get a fader, you get a pan knob, you get 10 inserts and 10 sands, and you can manipulate your audio through these tools, which is fine and dandy, pretty much every single DAW out there. The one thing to keep in mind is that the inserts are always pre-fader, meaning that if you add an insert, it will happen before your fader. If you move the fader, it won't affect any of the plugins on that track, which is something that we want from that behavior. Now let's go to Aux Input Tracks. Aux Input Tracks essentially have the exact same behavior as audio tracks, with the difference that they are not able to hold any audio. They can only act as pass-through audio. Here's where things get a little interesting, because you might think, well, why should I use an Aux Input Track if I have audio tracks? They're essentially used for 2 different types of tasks. They're either used for parallel processing, where you're going to create a duplicate of the same track and you're going to process it somehow. It's better than create duplicate in the audio track. That way you have a little bit more flexibility. Or they're going to be used to create what we call a summing bus, which essentially serves to route audio throughout your mix or sum different signals together. Okay, let's talk about the third track type that we need to understand, which is the master fader track. The master fader track serves to control either an internal bus of Pro Tools or a physical output of your converter. The one thing to keep in mind about master fader tracks is that the plugins are post-fader, meaning if you move the fader, it will affect the plugins, unlike the behavior that we get with Aux Input Tracks and audio tracks. Now, this is a really important behavior because it can be used to create some interesting processing. So let's say that you want to route something to an effect, but you don't want to keep the low end of that effect. What you can do is you can use an internal bus, route it to an Aux Input Track, then you can create a master fader track that controls that bus, and you can add a roll-off filter on that master fader track, meaning that it will affect the send that goes to that track without affecting either the Aux Input Track or the original audio track that you use. The other really useful feature of the master fader track is that it allows you to control the output of Pro Tools to your monitors. And this can be really useful because it just makes your life easier, that you don't have to tweak a big knob, or you're just maybe clipping the output of your converter, but everything internally sounds okay. Then you can just duck down using a master fader and you won't be changing your mix significantly. It won't affect anything that you've done. Okay, so now we have to talk about instrument tracks and MIDI tracks. Instrument tracks are essentially Aux Input Tracks combined with MIDI tracks. A MIDI track essentially serves to hold MIDI signals. That's all it does. It holds MIDI information. You cannot add any plugins. You can't manipulate any audio. It's all about MIDI. An instrument track essentially combines the functionality of a MIDI track with the functionality of an Aux Input Track, meaning that it allows you to manipulate your MIDI information and it allows you to process whatever you've used after your plugin instrument. So we've talked about 5 different track types. There are only 2 more track types that we need to talk about. The one that is important to us is the VCA master track. The VCA master track, it doesn't serve to route any audio. There's no signals passing through it. The VCA master track serves to control a group of tracks. So if you create a group, you should always create a VCA master track for that group, because it allows you to manipulate the faders individually and the faders simultaneously using the VCA master track. The last track type that we have in Pro Tools is a video track. The video track serves only to hold video. It does not have any plugins, but it does have something that is really really important, which is the frame rate information. You should always make sure that your video track has the same frame rate as the video that you put on it, or you might have some sync issues whenever you export your audio. Make sure that this setting is correct for the video that you're working on. This video is really straightforward. We've talked about the 7 types of track in Pro Tools. It's not something too complicated. It's really easy and it should really help you out. So if you like this kind of content, make sure to leave your thumbs up, to subscribe to our channel, and to leave down any comment if you have any questions, complaints, or whatever you want. You can just add it down to the comment section below. If you want to support us, you can also hire my services on Fiverr Pro. The link's down in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.